I hope it is already recording. So, my assigned topic for discussion for the day one of our study is Article 1194 hanggang Article 1196. So, I will present it now. I'll just open my window para ma-share screen. Okay, so let's start with Article 1194. In case of loss, deterioration, or improvement of the thing before the arrival of the day certain, the rules in Article 1189 shall be observed. Okay, so tatlo yung cases dito na pag-uusapan: loss, deterioration, or improvement. Now, what will be applicable for Article 1194 is Article 1189. We will observe Article 1189. Since we already discussed Article 1189, I will just review for recap kung ano ba yung Article 1189 that is also applicable to Article 1194. Going back to Article 1189, ang sabi sa Article 1189, when the conditions have been imposed with the intention of suspending the efficacy of an obligation to give, the following rules shall be observed in case of the improvement, loss, or deterioration of the thing during the pendency of the condition. So again, the cases that we are considering is three: loss, deterioration, and improvement. Ang condition sa Article 1189 is anim. Sixth yung condition. So the first two condition talks about kapag may loss. The next two condition, the 3 and 4, talks about deterioration. And the last two condition, that's 5 and 6, talks about pag merong improvement. Okay, so let's see. First two is about loss. Number one, if the thing is lost without the fault of the debtor, the obligation shall be extinguished. Kapag yung bagay na pinag-usapan is nawala without the fault of the debtor, so obligation will be extinguished. Example is, for example, yung si Ma'am Kunting. Sabi niya, Ma'am Bella, if ibenta mo yung property ko, I will give you a car worth 100,000. So, nagkaroon ng fortuitous event. Say, for example, nagka-earthquake. So, nawala na yung car. Nowhere to be found na siya. Ngayon, will Ma'am Kunting be obliged to give Ma'am Bella the car kapag naibenta na ni Ma'am Bella yung property? No. So, wala nang obligation si Ma'am Kunting kasi it is a fortuitous event and it's without the fault of the debtor of Ma'am Kunting, so the obligation will be extinguished. Okay. So, again, dito, ang pwede lang is, meron dito sinabi, I'll just read, no? So, Article 1189, this one. Pwede lang siyang ma-apply yung Article 1189 only if, number one, the obligation is a real obligation. Number two, the object is a specific or determinate thing. Number three, the obligation is subject to a suspensive condition. Number four, the condition is fulfilled. And number five, there is loss, deterioration, or improvement of the thing during the pendency of the happening of one condition. So, okay. Next, kapag naman, yung second condition natin is, what's our second condition? If the thing is lost, ngayon naman, through the fault of the debtor, he shall be obliged to pay damages. It is understood that the thing is lost when it perishes or goes out of commerce or disappears in such a way that its existence is unknown or it cannot be recovered. Kasi meron tayong tatlong klase ng loss. We have physical loss, we have legal loss. Is that legal loss? I have to check. Okay, yes, legal loss. Tapos third is civil loss. So physical loss, example dito is kapag nasunog yung bahay and it turns into ashes. So yung physical na bahay is a physical loss. The legal loss is when a thing goes out of commerce, kapag na phase out na siya. And then number three is civil loss. When a thing disappears in such a way that its existence is unknown. Example, kapag yung dog na missing, so hindi na natin alam kung saan na. Unknown na yung existence. But for example din, known siya pero hindi na siya na-recover. Example dito, yung ring nahulog sa dagat. So it's also considered civil loss. Although you know it, pero there's no way of recovering it. Okay, so yun yung iba't ibang klase ng law. So, for example, si Ma'am Kunting, with her fault, na lost yung kotse, sabihin natin. Dahil sa kapabayaan, no, na sira yung kotse or nawala yung kotse, nanakaw or what. Tapos, so Ma'am Kunting will be obliged to pay for the damages to Ma'am Belia. Okay? And then, ang third condition naman natin, ang third and fourth condition is about deterioration na. So when the thing deteriorates without the fault of the debtor, the impairment is to be borne by the creditor. Okay, so 'di ba ang pinag-usapan kapag naibenta ni Ma'am Bella yung property ni Ma'am Kunting, bibigyan ni Ma'am Kunting si Ma'am Bella ng kotse. But dahil masyadong matagal bago naibenta yung property, say for example, naibenta yung property after 10 years. So, dahil sa sobrang tagal na yon, yung car na ibibigay niya kay Ma'am Bella, nag-deteriorate na siya without the fault of Ma'am Kunting. So, the impairment is to be borne by the creditor. So, yung magsasuffer dito, si Ma'am Bella, kasi wala nang obligation si Ma'am Kunting with that car na kailangan ipaayos niya ba, no, wala na siyang obligation because the deterioration is without her fault. And then next is, if it deteriorates through the fault of the debtor, the creditor may choose between rescission of the obligation and its fulfillment with indemnity for damages in either case. Okay, so dito sa fourth condition, kapag through the fault of the debtor nagkaroon ng deterioration. So, for example, yung car, no? Dahil sa iniwan lang doon sa labas, yung car, nag-deteriorate siya and nagkaroon ng maraming sira. So, yung value niya nag-depreciate. If nangyari yon because of the fault of the debtor, for example, si Ma'am Kunting, yung creditor, si Ma'am Bella, pwede siyang magkaroon ng two options. First option is rescission. Sa rescission, it's what we call the cancellation. Pwede niyang ipa-cancel yung agreement nila. But Ma'am Kunting will have to indemnify. Or second option is, saan na yan? This one. Fulfillment of the obligation with or with also with damages. In this case, for example, because nag-depreciate yung value, yung car hindi na siya 100,000, 80,000 na lang kasi for example, ang dami ng sira, gas-gas, ganyan. So, pwede pa ring ibigay, i-fulfill ni Ma'am Kunting yung car, pero dahil nag-depreciate yung value ng 20,000, babayaran din niya yung 20,000 additional or plus incidental damage if any. So that is for condition 4. So next, condition 5. Ang condition 5 and 6, it talks about improvement naman. So hindi na siya loss or deterioration kapag naman nag-improve. So if the thing is improved by its nature or by time, the improvements shall inure to the benefit of the creditor. Ngayon, the question is, nagkaroon ng improvement, meaning tumaas yung value nung example natin ng car. So, sino yung magbe-benefit doon sa value ng car? For example, yung value niya from 100,000 naging 150,000 na siya through time. So, ang mag-benefit doon, si Ma'am Bella, yung creditor. Kasi, siya din naman yung magsasuffer kapag nagkaroon ng deterioration and loss ng hindi fault ni Ma'am Kunting. Siya yung magsasuffer kasi walang may fault doon. So, the same thing, to compensate for that, kapag naman nagkaroon ng improvement, siya din yung magbe-benefit, yung creditor or si Ma'am Bella. Now, number 6, if it is improved at the expense of the debtor, he shall have no other right than that granted to the usufructuary. For example, no, si Ma'am Kunting, nilagyan niya ng air conditioning unit kasi yung kotse, before pa na fulfill yung obligation ni Ma'am Bella na maibenta yung lupa or yung property. So, habang nandun pa siya kay Ma'am Kunting yung car, nilagyan niya ng air conditioning unit. Now, kapag na-fulfill na ni Ma'am Bella and required nang i-fulfill ni Ma'am Kunting yung deliverance of the kotse, kailangan na niyang i-deliver yung kotse kay Ma'am Bella. So, anong mangyayari doon sa nilagyan niyang air conditioning unit? Pwede niyang kunin yon provided that the car, hindi siya magkakaroon ng disruption or damage doon sa car. But kung magkakaroon ng sira, masisira yung thing, kahit pa na naglagay ng improvement doon yung debtor, kailangan na niyang i-deliver yon together with the improvement kapag magkakaroon ng damages kapag tinanggal niya yon. Because yung right ng debtor is that only of usufructuary. So yung usufructuary, yung enjoyment lang. So next na tayo. Tapos na tayo sa Article 1194, no? So yun yung basis sa Article 1194. I-base siya sa 1189. So 1195 naman, Article 1195, anything paid or delivered before the arrival of the period, the obligor being unaware of the period or believing that the obligation has become due and demandable may be recovered with the fruits and interest. Okay, so yung example dito, 1195, 1195. Okay, ang sabi dito kasi, debtor presumed aware of the period. For example, kasi nga, ang sabi kasi doon sa Article 1195, kapag unaware yung obligor of the period or believing that the obligation has become due and demandable, it may be recovered. But yung burden of proof na kailangan niyang i-prove na unaware pala siya doon sa period, no, na kailangan i-deliver, kailangan nandun sa kanya yung burden of proof na kailangan niyang i-prove na unaware siya. For example, dito, ang example natin, sabihin natin na si Ma'am Bella, nangutang siya kay Ma'am Kunting ng 10,000 pesos. So, ang usapan is kailangan mabayaran ni Ma'am Bella yung utang niya sa December 25, 2022. Okay. So, unaware siya na 2022 pala yung agreement because akala niya yung pagbasa niya doon is 2021. So, nung 2021, nagbayad na siya ng obligation niya. So, nagbayad siya ng ng 10,000 plus merong sabihin natin may 20% interest. So, additional of 2,000. So, yung binayad niya is 12,000. Pagdating ng December 2021, of which yung due pala is December 2022 pa. So, ang tanong, pwede niya pa rin bang i-demand na i-recover niya yon kasi hindi pa pala yung due. Unaware siya na hindi pa pala yung due. Yes, pwede pa rin niya yon i-recover. Okay, but again, yung burden of proving na unaware siya, nandoon sa Nandun sa kanya, sa debtor. Okay, so wait lang, example natin. Example, kapag naman aware siya no, pero nagbayad siya. So, paano yun? Sabi kasi dito, if, for example, si Ma'am Bella has the knowledge of the period na 2022 pala yung bayad, pero nagbayad siya ng 2021, so, Ma'am Bella deemed impliedly renounced the period. So, hindi na niya pwedeng ma-recover. So, ang ano dito, dapat unaware siya na yun pala yung payment, no? Yung date of, or the period of the obligation. But, note, dito sa Article 1195, applicable lang itong obligation na ito to give, no? To give. Hindi siya applicable sa obligation na to do. Kasi, Article 1195 has no application to obligations to do or not to do because it is physically impossible to recover the service rendered. Pag service rendered, hindi na natin ma-recover yung ginawa natin, no? And as to the latter, as the obligor performs by not doing, he cannot, of course, recover what he has not done. So that is Article 1195. So Article 1196 naman, going to Article 1196, whenever in an obligation a period is designated, it is presumed to have been established for the benefit of both the creditor and the debtor unless from the tenor of the same or other circumstances, it should appear that the period has been established in favor of one or the other. Okay, so for Article 1196, presumption as to benefit of the period. So it is presumed na yung in-establish nilang period kung kailan yung obligation, the period of the obligation, it is presumed that it is established for the benefit of the creditor and the debtor. Meaning, before the expiration of the period, the debtor may not fulfill the obligation, and neither may the creditor demand its fulfillment without the consent of the other, especially if there would be prejudice or inconvenience thereby. Kasi nga, minsan, for example, renta sa lupa or sa apartment. Okay, so, kailangan magbayad ka ng renta sa katapusan. Sabihin natin sa May 31. Ngayon, sabihin natin nag-rent si Ma'am Kunting kay Ma'am Bella. So, sabi ni Ma'am Bella, magbabayad ka sa katapusan ng renta, May 31. Ngayon, si Ma'am Bella, sabi niya, nag-demand siya na kailangan bayaran, kung pwede niyang bayaran yon before May 31. Pwede niya ba yun gawin? So, the creditor demand its fulfillment. Pag walang consent, hindi pwede. Kasi nga, ang always natin i-remember sa Article 1196, the presumed period is for the benefit of both parties, the creditor and the debtor. Oo. So, hindi din pwede na yung si debtor magbayad siya in advance dun sa obligation. Kapag yun yung presumption, that is, the period is presumed to be established for the benefit of the creditor and the debtor. Ngayon, unless there is exception, unless from the tenor of the same or other circumstances, it should appear that the period has been established in favor of one or the other. So, example tayo dito. On January 1, D borrowed from C 10,000 payable on December 31 at 18% interest. So si D naghiram siya ng 10,000 na kailangan bayaran sa December 31, tapos may additional 18% interest. D cannot pay before December 31 without the consent of C. Neither can C compel D to pay before the expiration of the term. It is presumed that the period designated again is for the benefit of both. Ngayon, kapag naman yung case is hindi siya for the benefit of both, meron tayong example dito. Kapag it's just for the benefit of the debtor alone. So the term is for the benefit of the debtor alone. He cannot be compelled to pay prematurely, but he can if he desires to. Okay. Example dito, D borrowed from C 10,000 to be paid within 1 year without interest. So sabi dito, si D, kailangan niyang bayaran yung utang niya kay C na 10,000 within 1 year. Hindi pwedeng si C compel siya kay D na magbayad ng early before 1 year nang walang consent ni D. Pero si D, pwede siyang magbayad anytime niya gusto. Kung gusto niya magbayad within 1 year or kung gusto niya magbayad earlier than the period na pinag-usapan na 1 year, pwede niya yung gawin. So that the term is for the benefit of the debtor. Meron din namang situation na the term is for the benefit of the creditor. So he may demand fulfillment even before the arrival of the term, but the debtor cannot require him to accept payment before the expiration of the stipulated period. For example, D borrowed from C 10,000 payable on December 31 with the stipulation that D cannot make payment before the lapse of the period, but C may demand fulfillment even before said date. Here, C can demand payment at any time, but D cannot shorten the 1 year period without the consent of C. Ordinarily, there must be a stipulation granting the benefit of the term to only the creditor. So, pwedeng mag-demand si C na creditor na magbayad si D earlier, but hindi pwedeng mag-demand si D na magbabayad siya earlier. I-shorten niya yung 1 year period na, magbabayad na lang ako. For example, supposed to be dapat December pa siya magbabayad. Magbabayad na lang siya ng, sabihin natin, magbayad na siya sa June. Hindi siya pwedeng mag-demand ng ganun. Pero pwedeng mag-demand si yung creditor, ng before that, before the fulfillment of the date ng bayaran. So that is the term for the benefit of the creditor. Pero ang sabi dito may demand. Pwede siyang mag-demand. Hindi naman sinabi na required talagang kailangan bayaran talaga yun ni D. Kasi for example, ang period is payable on December 31. Pwede siya mag-demand, no? Pwede siya mag-demand, but the period can still be payable until December 31. But merong benefit si creditor kasi pwedeng i-demand niya na mag-pay in advance. Okay. Meron pa bang example dito? So ito lang, for para ma-remember lang kasi we're talking about period dito. So reminding yung computation of the term period, diba? Before sa last sem, meron sa Article 13 ng Civil Code, when the law speaks of years, months, days, or nights, kapag years, ang 1 year understood as 365 days, ang months understood as 30 days, tapos ang day, 1 day is understood as 24 hours, tapos ang night understood is from sunset to sunrise. So, if months are designated by their name, they shall be computed by the number of days which they respectively have. So, kapag by their name, ang designation, for example, April, so 30 days, kapag May, 31 days, kapag June, 30 days, ganun. If in computing a period, the first day shall be excluded and the last day included. And a year is equivalent to 365 days regardless of whether it is a year or a leap year. So ito yung sabi sa Article 13 ng Civil Code. But then meron tayong parang um, contrary to that, under Administrative Code of 1987, ang sabi dito, legal periods, the year shall be understood as 12 calendar months. Ang months is 30 days unless it is referred to a specific calendar month, in which case it shall be computed according to the number of days the specific month contains, to a day of 24 hours and night from sunset to sunrise. Actually, almost the same lang yung administrative code sa civil Code Article 13. Ang difference lang dito sa Admin Code of 1987, yung sa year. Kasi dito, ang year, ang understanding sa year is 12 calendar months. Hindi na siya 365 days. So, a calendar month is a month designated in the calendar without regard to the number of day it may contain. So, ang tanong, ano yung ifa-follow? Ang sabi dito, this is in the case of Commission on International Revenue versus Primetown Property Group. Ang sabi, the Administrative Code of 1987 being the more recent law governs the computation of legal periods. So kapag computation tayo ng legal periods, ang i-follow natin is Admin Code kasi yun yung mas recent. So yes, yun yung ating 1194 to 1196. I hope na record siya ng ayos.